Hello and welcome. Today is the third day of the seventh week of the series. So we have been discussing about the molecular vibration and its symmetries. So we looked at one example of CO3 2 minus which had D3H symmetry. So what we did, we used all the Cartesian coordinates sitting on each atom, and using those coordinates we formed a representation, and reducing those representations we could ultimately find out what are the irreducible representation that any kind of molecular motion can have. And from there, with the help of the character table, we eliminated the IRs that are that represent translation and rotational motion. So thereby we got the irreducible representations that can be assigned to the genuine vibrational modes. So till that point we did, and we also said that if we do not have any idea about a particular normal mode, then using something called internal coordinates as my basis function, one can actually find out that what are the different motions that this particular molecule can execute in terms of vibrational motion. So today we will take another example here, and we will find out not only the irreducible representations that its vibrational motions can transform as, but also we will try to use the internal coordinates to find out about the normal modes themselves. So we would like to find out the exact directional motion which the atoms of this molecule will execute about its equilibrium position. And also we will try to find out that out of these vibrational modes which transform as certain irreducible representations, which one of them is infrared active, which one of them is Raman active, because these two are this two gives us information about the vibrational transitions in a molecule. So let's get started with one particular molecule. So the one that we will first consider is N2F2, and one particular form, that is transplanar configuration, will be considered today. Okay, so as usual, so see this particular example will take you through many various steps that we have learned so far. So each and every example that we discuss here will give you a recap of whatever we have learned, and every time something added to it, so that you get an overall idea what we can do with the symmetry and group theory. So first thing first, so we have to know the structure. This is the transplanar. So usually they have their own lone pairs of electrons, which we will not consider here. Even if you want to take it, you can take it as per your wish. So if you take it in this way, this is fine, but we will ignore the presence of the lone pair of electrons here. So first we have to find out what is the point group of this particular molecule. So this has a C2 which is toward you, so along z axis if I assume, and then this is the sigma h plane. So I have C2, I have sigma h, and also I have an inversion center, right? Because if I start from here, it will go here, and it will be coming to the place of 1, and this 2 and 3, they will also interchange their position. So I have also I, and nevertheless you have E. So my point group is C2H. Alright, fine. So we have found the point group of C2H. Next, what we are supposed to do? So next we have to find out the representation for this particular point group, and we have to choose a basis set for doing that. So in these cases, when we want to deal with the molecular motion, we choose generally the 3n Cartesian coordinate system on each and every atom. So we will consider the XYZ coordinates on each one of these atoms. Okay. So total I have 4 into 3 equals to 12 Cartesian coordinate coordinates as my basis function. Now whenever we talk about the molecular motion, so we talk about the degrees of freedom. So in whatever direction I can have the motion, right, be it translation, rotation or vibration. So now if I talk specifically about vibration, so vibration is nothing but the movement of any particular atom within a molecule in a particular direction by a particular amount, right. So this vectorial motion can be be a result of 3 unit vectors in that direction on that atom. Okay, so I can take this orthogonal Cartesian coordinate system x, y and z coordinates to find that particular motion of atom, right. So it can be a stretching vibration, it can be a bending of an angle, okay, it can be out of plane or in plane motion. So all these things in also the so like translation, I can express all these motions by combining this XYZ Cartesian coordinate system on each and every atom, rather I said each and every nuclei. So that's why we use this 3n Cartesian coordinate system as my basis set whenever we deal with this kind of problem, particularly involving molecular vibration. So I have to form a representation for this particular molecule using 3n Cartesian coordinate. So I have E, I have C2, I will specify this as C2Z, then I have inversion symmetry, and then I have sigma H, right. So I have to find out what are the characters of my representation. So identity operation will not change any of the atomic positions. So thereby all the basis functions also will contribute to the diagonal, okay, because all the basis functions will also remain identical. So therefore total 12 basis functions will contribute 12 to the overall diagonal and thereby to the character. Now what will be the fate of C2Z? C2Z will, which is right here, right, toward you. So that will shift all the atoms. So shifting all the atoms from its place mean the basis functions also will change their place. Thereby they will not be able to contribute anything to the diagonal, and then ultimately you get a character 0. Now if you know about the C2, then I does the pretty same thing. So it will interchange all the atoms, like 1 and 4 will interchange their places, 2 and 3 will interchange their places. Therefore the overall contribution coming from any unshifted atom in this molecule by the operation I is 0. So the character is 0. And sigma H, what it will do? Sigma H will not disturb any of the atom in the molecule. Therefore all the basis functions will contribute to the diagonal. Now by what and which amount, right? So this sigma H plane is nothing but the xy plane. So x and y coordinates will contribute 1 1 each. So overall I have total 4 x's and 4 y's. So total contribution coming to the diagonal is plus 8, while z will be reflected to the minus z. So 4 z coordinates will give me minus 4 contribution. So overall contribution toward the diagonal of the representation for sigma h is 8 minus 4 equals to 4. So this is what I get as my representation, and we have got this representation based on 3n Cartesian coordinate. So I will name it as gamma 3n. So in the next step, what I have to do, I have to see whether it is reducible or irreducible. So how do I know if it is reducible? So if my sum over the square of these characters, sum over all the symmetry operations, is greater than the order of group. Now what is this amount for our representation? So it is 12 square plus 4 square, total is 160, right? So this is 160, which is way greater than the order of the group, which is equals to 4. Therefore this is a reducible representation. So in the next step I have to reduce it. How do I reduce? I know that if I want to find out if the ith irreducible representation of this particular point group exists in the representation that I have just formed, then the number of such occurrence given as ai is equals to this is for my gamma 3n multiplied by the character of the same operation belonging to the ith irreducible representation. Remember that we have ignored the complex conjugate here, okay, and because the character table that we are considering right now, it doesn't contain any complex quantity, but remember that it is there in general. So if I use this formula, then I can find out what will be the numbers of time any particular irreducible representation will occur in this reducible representation. So what I can write here is that this gamma 3n is equals to, so we will not solve this explicitly, rather what we will do, we will just give you the final result, okay. So if I write this, it will be 4 ag plus 2 b subscript g plus twice au, and bu will occur 4 times. So if I just check if this one is correct or not, then all the dimensions will match up to the dimension of this particular representation. So all of them are one dimensional representation, and I have total 12 as my dimension, which is same as this. So my reduction of this representation is correct. Now next step, what we have to do, we have to find out which of these irreducible representation will give me the genuine vibrational normal modes, or in other words, which one of these all 12 possible modes or degrees of freedom, how many will be the vibrational normal mode? That answer we know, that will be 6. So I have to find out, so which 6 IRs actually form the set of genuine vibration. So in order to do that, what I have to do, I have to eliminate all the other contributions. Those are coming from translation and rotational motion. So translation, it transforms as translational motion. So that transforms as one of these translational motion transformed as either x or y or z Cartesian coordinates, and rotational motion they transform as rx or ry or rz. Fine. So what I can do, I can take this x, y, z or rx or ry or rz individually as my basis function, form a representation, and then find out which particular irreducible representation that is, and assign it to a particular translational mode or rotational mode. On the other hand, easily what I can do without taking the trouble of forming the representation, we can just take the help of the character table of this particular point group C2H. So we will now check with the character table and concentrate on the area 3, right. So area 3 will give me the functions which transform as one of these IRs, correct. So if I look at the area 3, what I get, so I get that x and y transform together. Now both x and y, they transform as the BU representation for C2H, okay, and Z transforms as AU representation, okay. So x transforms as BU, y also transforms as BU. So you can immediately figure out that x, y do not transform as BU together, but individually, because this is on one dimensional representation, right. So one function can which is like it's like x, it's not like a xy or xz. So x alone can give you only one dimensional representation. So x also transform as BU, y also transform as BU, and z transforms as AU, while Rx transform as BG irreducible representation, Ry also transforms as BG. So Rx as well as Ry both transform as BG representation, and AG transform as Z. Also I can write Rz transforms as AG irreducible representation. So these are the information that I require, correct, and we have taken them from the character table. So this is my overall irreducible representation, and then I have to get rid of the translational rotational contribution. So for translational contribution, so translational contribution comes from this x, y and z. So both x and y transforms as BU, so and z transforms as AU. So I have ultimately contribution coming from x, y and z as 2BU plus AU, right. Why 2? Because both x and y transform as BU. So each contribution I have to take care of, and then I get this 2. And rotational, I have I have 2BG similarly plus AG. Now I have to remove these contributions from this total list. So if I do that, so BU and BG occurs twice in that list. So BG is gone and BU becomes 2, right. So the genuine vibration refers to Ag occurs one time there. So from 4 I remove 1. So I have 3 Ag. I have 2 Bg here. So Bg doesn't occur in the final vibrational modes. And then I have 2 Au. So I have 1 Au here. So I remove one contribution. So I have 1 Au. And then I have 2 Bu here. So if I subtract 2 from this 4 Bus, I am left with 2 Bu, correct? So let's cross check. I have got 3 Ag and 1 Au and 2 Bu, fine. So total number of irreducible representation that from to which the normal modes of vibrations form the basis of is this. Okay. So we have got the irreducible representation that we wanted. Now what we need to do? We need to assign particular normal mode to their symmetries. So right now I do not know what are the particular normal modes that exist here, right? So I have to do that. And second, I said that this vibrational motions, okay, how can I talk about this vibrational or how can I find out about this vibrational motion experimentally? So I can find that out by using spectroscopy. So what are the vibrational spectroscopic techniques that will give me the transition energies for any particular vibrational mode? So one is infrared spectroscopy, another is Raman spectroscopy. So I have infrared spectroscopy and Raman spectroscopy as my tool to find out about the vibrational transition frequencies for any given particular normal mode. Now I have got a number of vibrational mode, total 6 vibrational mode. So each one of them will make some kind of transitions. Now how will I know that which particular mode will be infrared spectroscopy active, and which one will be Raman active? Or in other words, what I can say is that particular vibrational mode can be seen using infrared spectroscopy, and some particular vibrational modes can be seen by Raman spectroscopy. It is possible that I can see one or more normal modes, the transition involving one or more normal modes using both IR or Raman spectroscopy, or it can be either of them. So we need to know about such selection rule. Then only we can comment on that out of these 6 vibrational modes, which one will be Raman active, which one will be infrared active. And also we should be able to tell that okay, if some mode is IR active or if some mode is Raman active, then what particular polarization this transition will follow. So with those things we'll come back in the following week. Okay, so thank you for your attention, and see you tomorrow.